Welcome, everyone, to a new episode of the Football Baron podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about how Liverpool has won the Premier League for the first time in their history, as well as the Bundesliga season finishing up alongside some transfer news. Let's get right into it. Liverpool have officially won the title now, and of course, we all knew that it was coming to happen, or it was going to happen, because of course, they were just completely dominant. But it is an impressive achievement and something Jurgen Klopp and his side and all of those players, they worked hard for. And I think that Merseyside fans and Liverpool fans overall just deserve it. They deserve the title. And, there's so many times in the past, in their history, they've been so close, but weren't able to clinch the title, such as last season. But the ability for them to bounce back in and just keep pushing towards that goal, which is, of course, winning the title, I think is impressive and should be, it is and should be and is, congratulated and cheered for because of what they did. And I think, again, it's impressive for Liverpool to do that. And, of course, we should be all congratulating them no matter what side we're on. And on to our next topic, focusing more on Liverpool winning the title as a whole. I was thinking about this. Who is the most underrated player for Liverpool in this current moment? I wouldn't say any of the front three. I think the front three is highly rated enough. I think Virgil van Dijk, Jordan Henderson, and goalkeeper Alisson, they're not underrated at all. But I feel that the most underrated, thinking more on it, was and is, I feel, Andrew Robertson, the left back for Liverpool. Now, I've been a huge fan of Andrew Robertson in Liverpool for a good amount now. And I do really think that he is important in the team. And we saw that in the Everton game, how they looked very unbalanced or imbalanced without Andrew Robertson. And they clearly lack a presence when he's not there. I mean, they can put James Milner in as left back, but it's not really a major replacement, I guess. It doesn't really slot into the system as well. And when James Milner gets injured, you can bring Joe Gomez on, but he isn't a left back at all. But looking more into it, you can see that Andrew Robertson, and of course you can say Trent Alexander-Arnold, he's underrated, but no, Trent Alexander-Arnold is a local player, a local lad, and he should, he's I think he's well rated by many people. But I feel Andrew Robertson out of the two gets the least praise and the least recognition as a vital part of the team. He's constantly running up the left flank and is just very committed, and I think it sets a good expectation. And we already see that commitment from other players such as Jordan Henderson, who are just constantly pushing themselves to do well for their club. And I think Andrew Robertson is another example of that. And I do believe that he is one of the most underrated players and is the underrated player at Liverpool. And I do think that if they lose him, that they will look very weak. And that is one thing that they will have to look towards in the transfer market. If they lose him to injury, like they did in the Everton game, they look very, very dysfunctional. Looking at the game that ultimately led to Liverpool winning was the Chelsea versus Manchester City game, which, by the way, was impressive, and a really impressive game. Both sides playing some impressive football, and I do think it was beautiful, amazing to watch from a neutral perspective. And I really do think that Chelsea's looking very bright. It could be Manchester City aren't really motivated due to, there's nothing really for them to play for the Premier League. I mean, there's not much. No matter you're basically holding in the top four, but you might not even play Champions League because, of course, they are facing a potential ban for 2 years in the Champions League. But I do think that it was an impressive performance by Chelsea. Now, speaking of this Chelsea versus Manchester City game, one of the key players that stood out to me, Christian Pulisic, now an American icon right now for the American football team. I do think that he's looking very, very sharp, especially after the coronavirus restart. When they restarted the season, he's been scoring a lot of goals, especially after the restart. And I do think that if he's injury free next season, I think he can put in some solid performances under Frank Lampard. Now, we saw earlier in the season where Frank Lampard wasn't really giving him time, and I think that's a coaching method to really push the player, and it turned out to work well. And soon after he started playing again, he scored a hat trick in one of the Chelsea games that he played for. And I think that if Frank Lampard can still keep doing what he's doing when it comes to man management surrounding Christian Pulisic, I think it will be pretty great. Pretty great for Pulisic in developing further. And with the new transfer signings coming in for the next season, I think it will look very, very good for the team to see Hakim Ziyech, and Timo Werner both putting in some solid performances, potentially with Christian Pulisic. And Pulisic will also be useful for Chelsea in really potentially getting Timo Werner acclimated with those with Pulisic having played in the Bundesliga and Werner coming from the Bundesliga. He could potentially help Werner get acclimated, and I do think that he could play a major role in the next season if he stays injury free. Another major thing that happened was the Bundesliga season ending with the 34th match playing out. If you look at the scorelines, if you go look at the scorelines for the Bundesliga match days, that was simply incredible. The scorelines were just very, very big for some of those games, like such as my favorite team and my club, SC Freiburg, winning 4-0 against Schalke, and then SV Werder Bremen winning 6-1 compared to Köln. And, of course, Hoffenheim shocking Dortmund 4-0 win with Andrej Kramaric scoring all 4 goals. Really impressive by him, and good job on him. But it wasn't really... I think that's amazing. I think just seeing the scoreline. And I feel like I think it's primarily complacency from all certain clubs. They either they're very injured or very tired from all the games, and there's not really a point in playing for some of those clubs. Like Dortmund, what are they playing for? They've secured second place. They're going to play younger players, and some of those clubs did, and they played younger players to just give them experience. And there's not much you can do when you have inexperience as well as complacency. Those score lines are a natural process. And just thinking more of it, while I was watching the SC Freiburg game and looking at Schalke, they do not look really close together. Like as a team, they don't look that strong, and maybe it's just tiredness, maybe inexperience because they did and still do have a lot of injuries. But looking at some of their key players or players who are leaving, for example, Alexander Nubel, who signed for Bayern Munich, and he's being titled as the next Manuel Neuer, and that could potentially be it. But looking at his performances in the last couple of games for Schalke, I do really think that his mentality towards the game as a whole is not really good. I think that it could be because of the contract signed. He doesn't really feel that there's any importance in playing for Schalke, but that already is a bad mentality. You should always be playing for your to your fullest extent for your club, and I don't see him really doing that. And if he's gonna want to be a Bayern Munich number one goalkeeper, if he wants to be the number one ahead of Manuel Neuer, he needs to have that mentality. It might be different when he goes to Bayern Munich, but I do think that's a bad warning sign for a player who who just slumps in his performances. It might be due to the praise he's getting, or it might get onto his head or something, but you don't know exactly with players when it comes to this. But it is looking very worrying for Bayern and potentially other people looking at Alexander Nubel, how his development is. He's kind of throwing it away with his performances at Schalke. I mean, looking at the Freiburg game, Schalke had way more shots and way more shots on target, but our goalkeeper, our number 2 goalkeeper, Mark Flecken, he put in solid performances. And while blocking some of those goals, he put in some good saves. Yeah, blocking some of the shots. But looking at Nubel, he doesn't. He was just putting half-ass attempts at blocking some shots, and I do think that's very worrying for Bayern and Bayern Munich fans. If you want someone to replace, it's going to be way, way, way harder than just getting someone from Schalke again, like you got Manuel Neuer. I think that Manuel Neuer is going to be very, very, very hard to replace unless you splash out a lot of money in the transfer market. Another major thing that happened in the Bundesliga for this last match day was Thomas Muller clenching the new record. He matched it for Kevin De Bruyne's new record. Kevin De Bruyne's record was at 20 assists in the Bundesliga season, and he matched it a couple match days ago or last match day. But this match day, he beat it with 21 assists, an impressive achievement by Thomas Muller, and he's really blossoming under Hansi Flick and under the new management, and he's really looking back to his old self and could put in some solid performances in such good form. Him and Lewandowski in such good form could be a real threat in the Champions League that's coming up, and Bayern will look very, very strong and should be well rested with the Bundesliga season ending earlier than other leagues. They should look more rested in the Champions League and something that they can benefit from. Another Bundesliga event that occurred, or an interview, was with Erling Holland of Borussia Dortmund and the Norwegian striker. Now, he was talking about potentially leaving Dortmund, and he said that he didn't want to leave Dortmund until he wanted to win something at Dortmund during his time there. And I think that means that he will most likely and definitely will stay next season. And I think that is good. I do think that's good. I think people who were saying that Erling Haaland, he should leave Dortmund, I don't think that's smart at all. He's still 19 or 20, I believe. And if he's still that young, he's still developing, and I do think Borussia Dortmund will be a great place for him to develop. Just like they developed Jadon Sancho into a really amazing player, they can need to and will develop Erling Holland into a better player as well. And he's going to be great potentially with his potential so high, and it's great that he's staying because. He has a goal in mind. He wants to win something. He's driven in towards his goal. He's not going to leave the club after only half a season with them, transferring from RB Salzburg. And that's great. He doesn't want to move around, just move around clubs, just going for the next best club to the other without really doing much at that club. And that's impressive. And I really do get a lot of Cristiano Ronaldo vibes, I guess, from him. He's just moving, like Ronaldo was at Manchester United, won, and moved on to a next challenge, which was Real Madrid, and then he's moving on, and he has another challenge at Juventus, trying to get Juventus a Champions League, and I think that Erling Haaland is doing something similar. I don't think he will stay at Dortmund. I highly doubt he will stay at Dortmund for a long part of his career. I think he will move around a lot of clubs, and I think he will do something along the lines of Cristiano Ronaldo, where he moves around on clubs and he wins a fair amount. He's a prolific goal scorer. Many of us recognize that, and I think he can do some great things. And I see his career going along the lines of Cristiano Ronaldo. I'm not saying that he will win a lot of Ballon d'Ors and do all the amazing things. He can do that potentially, but I do think the way his career, how he's moving around, could potentially move around clubs, that it will be a little bit similar to Cristiano Ronaldo. All right, so I wanted to share this story that I found out on goal.com, and it was impressive. So there's a Russian Premier League team called FC Rostov, right? And they lost to another Russian Premier League team 10-1. And that was because they were playing their youngsters who were aged 16 to 20 and 16 to 19. And what happened was many people saw it and they're like, holy crap, this team lost by such a large margin. And then the team came out with a statement because what happened was a large amount of their team, their main team, a couple of their players were infected with the coronavirus, so they had to quarantine the rest of their team. And the opposition team that they were facing, they proposed, hey, you want to put it back, you want to extend the game back and postpone it, and they refused, so they had to play their very young side. Now, of course, they got thrashed. They scored an early goal, but then they got thrashed 10 goals to 1 later in the game. And many people were like, what's wrong with the goalkeeper? And they're all young, so they will be very inexperienced to these older players. But their really young goalkeeper, he won man of the match performance. He got a man of the match performance despite conceding 10 goals. He made 15 breathtaking saves according to the Russian Premier League team in their statement. Their 17-year-old goalkeeper, Denis Popov, made 15 breathtaking saves, including one penalty, which is a Russian Premier League new record. And I think that's fantastic and amazing. I just wanted to share that with you guys. I thought it was very interesting to see such a great stat or great new record or great performance despite the scoreline saying something completely different. Looking at a 10-1, you're just instantly going to blame the goalkeeper or the defense overall. And him putting in a man-of-the-match performance despite losing 10-1 is incredible. And I hope all those youngsters mentally rebound from that game and be still proud of their performance for facing such a top-level team at their level. All right, I'm going to be moving on to a more SC Freiburg focused topic. For those of you who don't know, they're a team in the Bundesliga, and they're my favorite team, my club. And I just wanted to do a more fan-oriented opinion piece, I guess, and a little mini award, team award. So looking back on Freiburg and our impressive run in the Bundesliga this season, where we got eighth, and very close to continental qualification, but it's not much you can do. But still an impressive run from the team. Now looking back, I think who is the player of the season? And I would have to give it to my man Christian Günther. Christian Günther, amazing performances this season. 2 goals, 10 assists, and I believe he didn't miss any single game this entire season. And that is amazing. Of course, he went off a couple times for our young prospect, Luka Itter, for the left back position, just to get some rest and to give some time to the youngster. But I do think he deserves player of the season for the team. And Christian Günther just did really well. Now, I would say there are some honorable mentions, of course. I would put Luca Waldschmidt, Nils Petersen, potentially even Vincenzo Grifo, but sadly he kind of dipped in form. But despite that, I do think that those players are amazing as well, and they were one of the key reasons as well in helping us get to such a high position in the table. And I just have to give it to Christian Günther, and I just wanted to just give that section of the podcast to Christian Günther and SC Freiburg for such an impressive run this season. And I do think he deserves the team player for SC Freiburg player of the season. All right, we have some transfer news and rumors for you. Achraf Hakimi of Real Madrid, who is on loan at Borussia Dortmund, is looking to be set on Inter Milan, moving to Inter Milan, and the fee is reported around 50 million euros. Now, I think this is a good piece of business for Inter Milan. He's developed amazingly well, and he's done impressive. He's put in some impressive performances in the Bundesliga, and the fact that he's only moving for 50 million euros. Now, I feel that's kind of a deal for Inter Milan. And reading a article from some of the Italian media, they state that Real Madrid were willing to do that deal because they already have depth in their squad to replace him. And the right back who is in their team right now, Dani Carvajal, is only 28. As well as they're making a good amount of return money from Hakimi because he is from their youth system. So still impressive piece of business on Real Madrid and Inter Milan's half, with Real Madrid, of course, benefiting from profiting off their youth product, and Inter Milan getting a great right back to bring into their team. Now, with him coming on and Inter Milan looking to sell Lautaro Martinez, who is looking very impressive, I believe they're going to sell him for a good amount as well. Yes, they're going to sell him they're looking to sell him at around 111 million euros, which is his release clause. And if they sell him, if Lautaro Martinez, with people like clubs like Barcelona potentially being interested, it would be a major deal, and could fund some even more transfers. And Inter Milan for the past couple of for the past transfer windows have been putting in some excellent business, such as bringing in Christian Eriksen on for a good amount of money, despite his contract nearly expiring. And I think Inter Milan will be looking to challenge Juventus this next season in the Serie A, and could very well do so even better than they have this season and win the Scudetto. So that will be our last segment of the Football Baron podcast for today. I just want to thank you all for watching and listening to this episode of the Football Baron podcast. If you are on any podcast apps such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or any of those, Spotify, just please follow us on that platform and subscribe to us on that platform. And please rate us. It really helps us get more discoverability. And thank you again for watching. And if you would like to, please watch us on our YouTube channel. Football Baron is our YouTube channel name. And we upload smaller clips from the podcast in more consumable fashion for you to listen to and watch to. And hope you all enjoyed this episode. Again, thank you all for listening. And I hope you all have a great day. Bye.